Mics are on.
You do that right after roll call.
Huh? Yeah, but I hate the freaking Niners more than anything on the planet. I root for every team in the NFL before them.
Michelle, you ready? Okay. We'll call tonight's meeting to order. If you'll please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go to a roll call.
Councilmember Kay,
Here.
Councilmember Stroman,
Here.
Councilmember Engel,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here. Tonight we have a presentation, it looks like. But before we do that, I just want to tell the community thank you for having a productive conversation earlier. It went well, I thought. City Manager, you ready?
Turn it over to
And Chief?
So first off, I have a couple of presentations. The first is going to be our newest officer, Officer Brandon Gunter. So Brandon graduated the police academy in November of last year, and while he was in the academy, applied to be an officer with us. He completed the background process and hiring process, and he was officially sworn in on February 21st, I believe, February 18th of this year. And so this is his formal swearing-in ceremony. He's already worked a few shifts and has begun his FTO program. Looking forward to a hopefully long and productive career with us. He's going to be, his badge is going to be pinned on by his mom, Janice. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Brandon Gunter,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true and faith
that I will bear true and faith
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
in allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Around town. And then the next thing I've got is I want to recognize our most productive officer of 2024. So in 2024, this officer had 354 citations when the next officer had 172. This officer had the most arrests with 145. The next officer had 80 arrests. This officer also took the most police reports at 205 police reports, and the next closest officer took 155. They're not only an extremely productive officer, his work product is also exceptional for the amount of time he's been with us. He's only been with us for about a year and a half, going on 2 years. I'd like to present Officer Palomino with the Officer of the Year Award. Congratulations. Good work.
Thank you.
Oh. Great work.
Well, keep up the good work. You guys are doing a great job.
Them that are doing the great work, I'm just kind of giving them what they need to do it.
City manager, you want to do anything prior to consent calendar?
No.
Okay. So we'll go on to the consent calendar. Is everyone okay with 1 and 2, or do we want to pull?
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, I'd like to note that I'll be abstaining from item number 1, as I was not present at that meeting.
Okay. Abstaining on number 1. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, wait 1 sec here. We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, say nay. All right, no nays. And 1 abstain, correct?
Correct. Just on item number 1.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go on to staff communications here.
Start on that side, if there's anything.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor and council members. We are still in the middle of our audit, or towards the end of our audit for 2024. That's looking nicely. We have the new officer onboarded. We've got a few uses of some of the new software we've put into place this year for onboarding and offboarding personnel. So that was really nice to see that worked seamlessly. And the consent calendar was fairly light. If there's any questions you have on any of those items, let me know. We have different reporting that we put out last meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, showing up a top down who our biggest expenses were, what our contract usage was. So if there's something like that you'd like to see, just let staff know and we'll get that done.
Any further questions for finance? No? Well, keep up the good work. You've been doing a great job since you've gotten on board, so we appreciate it. Chief?
Nothing additional at this time.
All righty. Already said something to you earlier, so. Public Works?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A couple updates. One, the sidewalk dent project that's going on. We are, with the few rain days we have, we are still on schedule. Things are going fairly well over there. Hoping by end of week that we are all the way to the end of Mitchell and Yosemite with actual concrete work, and then hopefully by end of next week we're done with actual concrete work, and then we'll be as far as finishing up landscaping and punch list, fine-tune things like that. So going well. Holding tomorrow, we actually have our interviews for Public Works. We've got 11 candidates coming in tomorrow for interviews, so hopefully we can get a good pool from that. Those interview process looks really good on paper at this point. And then also, who doesn't know, this weekend is opening day for baseball for our recreation program, so I hope everybody can make it out there. We've got a lot of fun things that are going to be going on Saturday. And it seems like March, of course, might be a rainy month. So let's pray for no rain on Saturdays for baseball, but it can rain any other day. So that's it for Public Works. Thank you.
Any questions for Public Works? Are you running into any problems with the constituents as far as the project?
I wouldn't say problems. There's been a few concerns here and there that nothing that the city hasn't been able to work out. So it's been going well.
Okay, and everything looks like it's on pace to be ready for this weekend?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
I lied. I do actually have one question for you, Justin.
Yes, sir.
That house that we discussed, the one property that was kind of a difficulty with that sidewalk project, has that all been sorted out?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
I just hadn't been over there for a few days, and it was untouched the last time I was there, so I
Yeah,
was just
it has.
curious. Perfect.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have something for Public Works.
Yeah.
I'm going to embarrass you publicly, just so you know.
Happens often. Feel free.
But I was at an event this weekend talking to a constituent who was impacted by the sidewalk project. And I asked them, how's everything going? And the response that I got back was, Justin Collins is such an incredible asset to the city of Escalon because he goes above and beyond, takes the time to listen to us, listen to our concerns. And for Justin, it's not just about doing what's in the best interest of the city, it's about doing the right thing. And so again, I want to publicly embarrass you and say, you know, you were out there 8 o'clock this morning, meeting with residents. And I can't speak for the other 4, but really appreciate all the efforts that you're doing, being out there, pounding the pavement, meeting with the people. And I know you and the city manager have been doing the same thing, but as we witnessed in the earlier meeting, I mean, we want to hear from the people. And I just really want to commend you for all of your hard work, especially on that project, because it does impact us. It impacts people's yards. It impacts our kids walking safely to school. And so just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll pass it along to the department. They're the ones that make me and the city look good, so thank you.
Anyone else? All right, off to the city manager.
All right, couple items tonight. It is first great to see the recognitions from the police department, the new officer, Officer Gunter. Welcome aboard to him. It's great to see a new face. And then the Officer of the Year, Officer Palomino, did stellar job. You hear the reports each month. Did a stellar job this year, and I give kudos and credit to Chief for recognizing officers in that way. To follow up on Justin's Dent Avenue sidewalk, yes, that house is under construction. It's going. Around the corner, both in terms of time and literally around the corner on Yosemite Avenue, city staff is preparing the next sidewalk infill project on Yosemite. We hope that will get kicked off, and we expect that to get kicked off this summer. Staff last week went on a walk to look at every single property and to determine what the impact would be to those yards. We will start meeting with those residents. To discuss the impact and, you know, anything that we can work out before construction actually takes place. So again, we expect Yosemite Avenue sidewalk infill project to take place this summer. And then I will just mention a lot of comments recently about rec, baseball, softball in particular. We recognize those. We do have a recreation commission meeting coming up Wednesday in 2 days. At 6:30, we certainly welcome the public to attend and provide any feedback input that they may have at that time.
Yosemite, is that like where, let's see, the corners of like Elizabeth, that part of Yosemite, is that?
Yeah, east of Mitchell.
East of Mitchell, okay.
All righty. Anyone have questions for city manager? All right. Anyone in the audience have questions for staff? Supervisor Rickman, what are you doing here?
So this is public comment, Mayor, I think.
Oh, sorry.
He wants to make a public comment.
Yeah, let me read something real quick. Matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record. However, it is not required. Due to state law, action will be taken on any item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing an item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. That being said, Supervisor Rickman, you wanted to say something?
I just want to know who's watching the clock for this guy.
I give a politician a mic, he'll never get out of here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to the council. Good evening, our city manager, chief. And it was great to be here to see the new hire and the officer of the year. And I have heard some great things about you also, all the way in Stockton, Sound King County. I just wanted to stop by and give you guys some information. As you know, the non-county organization funding, it is usually at the beginning of the year, and it has been moved, and the portal opens on July 1st, and it closes at the end of the month of July 31st. and they'll be recommending projects at September 23rd for the CAO to the board. The non-county organization funding is an opportunity for nonprofits to get some funding from the county. As you've seen in the past, Escalon Strong has received money, Escalon Fund Bunch also. So there's an ample opportunity. So you guys have my email. Many of you have my phone number. Please reach out. And the earlier the better, because what can happen is you give us the information of the nonprofit, and we can notify them when the portal opens so they don't forget. Also, another avenue for some funding is District 5 funding. That's funding from my office. And again, it's one-time funding for nonprofits. If you know somebody, please hit me up and let me know so what we can do to help out. Also, we have our office, 5th District, hired a new employee, our field representative, board aide, Maria Valenzuela. You'll be seeing her more here in Escalon. What we want to do is have her here once a week. So we have a steady presence here in Escalon, of course. Myself and a family lives here. I'm here a lot also. But if you have any concerns, Maria will be here. And I want to introduce Scott to my chief of staff here also. And lastly, I want to welcome Councilmember Kay. Congratulations on the election. I don't really know you too well.
Thanks, sir.
Get to know you, and congratulations to Councilmember Stroman on your election. And it is, we're having a good time with Councilmember Engel on COG. Council of Government doing a great job fighting for transportation funding here for the 5th District, which includes Escalon. And as you all know, hey, give me a holler if you have something. You have my phone number, mine or Scott's, and let us know what you guys need. We're here for you guys. And go Cougars, right? So again, thank you all, and God bless.
Thanks. Thank you for your time. Anyone else like to make a comment or come up to the podium? All right.
Really quick. Can I get an update on the 1st and James Street area light? East street lamp?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting some information back from PG&E. We've been through the process. I've been going back and forth a few emails, so it's kind of my core. I'm just having a hard time, but we're working on it. We're trying to get there.
Okay. And then the administrative matters number 5, will the public be able to comment on that? Okay. And last, or the minutes, has there been a change to the process in the minutes? I'm noticing them now in the agenda packet, but then they go to how they were separate. Has there been a change to how we're doing this?
If the reference is to where they're stored online.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, so after each meeting has minutes, and then once the council approves the minutes at this meeting for the prior meeting, then those are loaded online so someone can reference just the minutes and not have to access the agenda report.
Okay, so it hasn't been that way for a couple weeks, and then it's changed back now, so I don't know what's going on there. And then last, can we please get some officer presence on 1st between Oklahoma and Pioneer between 4:30 and 5:30? The speeding somebody is going to get seriously injured. A lot of it is, I will say, a younger population who have big trucks or small modified cars, and they just have no care, and it's just becoming every day during that time, and I'm very concerned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Was it Danny that wanted to say something? Oh, I thought it was.
Thank you. Appreciate it, your time. Need some clarification on a couple of weeks ago. Looking at the agenda item request, you look at all through to that, I, as an individual citizen, can put in for a agenda request. If that's approved, then I can come before the council as an agenda item to be discussed. A couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the presenter was here on an agenda item request, and the city attorney stopped the requester and said it was a public hearing, public meeting, referencing this, you only have 5 minutes for public comment. I think that's what, if you look back on the tape, it was a public comment, which I think it's understood and written, it's 5 minutes. My clarification is, if I have an agenda item that's approved for the agenda, am I going to be limited to 5 minutes? Because it's not in the policy.
Frank,
No, hey, look,
you want to answer
let's be frank. You know, people can take a look around and see the makeup of what's going on in this room at times, but if a council person, individual gets offended by what perhaps I'm saying, it's my agenda item, I don't think it's then should be turned into public comment. So I'd just like to have a clarification. Is there a 5-minute limit on my agenda request item that's been approved?
would you like to respond?
Yeah, happy to. Those are good questions. I think that the key for agenda items that are even if the policy allows agenda items to be requested from the public, it doesn't convert that into the public's agenda item that they are providing the PowerPoint, they are providing the presentation. Staff prepared the staff report. They provided the staff report presentation based on the agenda request from the public, but it was still staff's item to present and report to the public, or report to the board and the council and the public on. Outside of that agenda item request, that any speaker is entitled to the time limits for public comment, just like any other item. They may have a more vested interest because they made the request, but the party that's still presenting, owning, managing, preparing the staff report, and presenting is still the staff. So it's still the staff's item regardless of where the agenda item request comes from. So in that context, if the council obviously wants to explicitly change that policy, it certainly can look at that. I just think that the heart of the policy says it is to provide a request to staff. It doesn't say they have requested staff and now they're guaranteed the right of the floor as though they stand in the shoes of staff to present with an unlimited period of time. And again, that policy obviously could be changed to allow for those greater rights, but that's just what the policy says.
Does that answer your question?
Well, it didn't answer the clarification on my question.
Would you like to meet with him on a different?
I'm happy to talk to Mr. Fox after.
Okay, thank you.
That's it?
Well, what's it? He's trying to give you clarity on your question, and it's not.
Yeah.
Not understanding.
Yeah.
I answered it to the best of my ability. I'm happy to talk to you right after the meeting to try to say it better or clearer. I wasn't trying to answer it as straightforward as I possibly could.
So my another question, if I have an agenda item and it goes beyond 5 minutes, I can be cut off?
You want me to answer?
That's my question is.
What do you mean if you make a request for an agenda item?
Yeah.
What I was saying was you have the right to request an agenda item.
Yes.
That's still a staff's item that they're presenting, even though the request for that item came from the public. It's actually not your item. It's still the staff's item. That's my point. You have a vested interest in it if you made the request, so therefore, obviously, you're going to want to come up and speak, but it's still staff's item. Staff's not bound by the 5-minute rule in any of their presentations because they're not part of public comment. The agenda item request is just that, the request to have it agendized for presentation by the staff to the council. If you want to speak on an item that you've requested, you still have that right under public comment. But the policy does not say if you make a request, you are entitled to present it and stand in the shoes of staff, and it's your item. As far as I understand that item, it was prepared and written by staff, researched by staff, with input from members of the public, but it was still staff report. That's all I'm saying.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? We'll take it to online. Anyone online? No? Okay, let's bring it back. We'll go to the next step here, which would be administrative matters. Number 3.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Jalen French, City Manager. So the item before council tonight is consideration of the City of Escalon 2025-2026 strategic plan. Really, the intent of the plan overall is to identify a set of priorities for those calendar years I mentioned, 2025, 2026, and to outline a staff work plan to accomplish those priorities, to achieve those priorities. The plan, therefore, will serve as a roadmap to a more, hopefully, a more fiscally resilient and healthier city. I think we recognize as staff, due to limited resources, we can't accomplish in a satisfactory manner everything that the community may want. So I like this quote from George Lucas, always remember your focus determines your reality. And I think part of the strategic plan is really focusing our resources and indicating to the public where we intend to focus our energy so that we can accomplish those things in front of us. So to that end, the plan will direct and focus energy on what is most important right now to ensure progress in the overall goal of a more resilient and healthy community. And really it's to guard against, diffusing resources in a manner that we're taking on a lot but not accomplishing a lot. We really want to accomplish the goal set out in front of us. So kind of where this started from and the process, we recognize each cycle, every 2 years, there's an election, and sometimes there's turnover in the council. I think some cities can get caught up in assuming that the past direction is the same as the current direction, and that nothing has sort of changed politically, socially, economically, things like that. And so the intent here is when there's a new council that's onboarded, we really reset the conversation and reset the priorities. And if at that window the priorities are the same, great. Then that's an affirmative action to the public that the priorities are the same and will continue on. So every 2 years after the election, staff intends to onboard either the new council members or all the council members, really, share information on the current issues, where they stand, the status, those types of things. In this cycle, we did hold a council workshop to really discuss the most pertinent issues. Had a good, fruitful conversation over, almost 3 hours or a little over 3 hours, where we really started to identify the key issues within the community. And I can just touch on some of those. Some of the things that were mentioned: economic development, traffic safety, of course, focusing on Brennan 120, but also speeding throughout town, financial stability, state control of local matters, small town community atmosphere, housing affordability and supply, public safety, really focus around reducing officer turnover, infrastructure, improve community receptiveness to change, volunteerism, and then recreational space, kind of increase recreational space. So again, it'd be hard to focus our attention on all of those issues. But council really was gravitating towards several items, really 4 items, and those are what are in the plan as the top strategic priorities. And those are economic development, fiscal stability, public safety, and infrastructure. And so if we go maybe down to the actual plan itself, we can kind of look at the plan. And maybe zoom out a little bit. This is a plan we're scrolling through. Keep going. These are the four strategic priorities that I just mentioned: economic development, fiscal stability, public safety, and infrastructure. If we go down, under each item, here color-coded, we have a series of goals and sort of a timeline to when we expect to complete the items. And what we want to do is provide quarterly updates against this progress. So this is, high transparency, high accountability. What we intend to work on is here for everyone to consider, to view, and then we'll provide updates quarterly. But just to highlight a couple, just to show how the plan works. First one is establish an economic development committee. So economic development committee, the way it's envisioned is 2 council members, so less than a quorum of the council, and members of the business community in some manner, whether it's chamber or business owners or execs at businesses, getting together to discuss economic development issues. So this would be in some regard like a planning commission, like a rec commission. It would be sort of an advisory board, more in an ad hoc fashion, to the council on economic development matters. And it really provides a venue for us to talk about economic development issues, and not just from a council or community perspective, but from a business perspective. And so you see, a very specific action with a timeline, a little description under each action. And if we go down a bit, you'll see each 4 items have their own goals and action items that are time-bound. So if you go all the way to the end, 2 more, keep going. Talk about next steps. There you go, 1 more. And in the plan, it's actually 11 by 17, but you can see, kind of a quick snapshot of the priority, what the specific goals are, when we hope to accomplish it, and who is responsible for accomplishing it. Again, high transparency, high accountability. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have, and then council discussion.
Any questions up here? No? Any questions in the audience? Okay, any questions online? All right, we'll bring it back to humor and motion, or if there's any other questions prior to that.
So I just want to make a quick comment. And that comment is, Jalen, I know that this is something that you've been working towards, and it's probably been a lot of hard work. I just wanted to state that I really appreciated the collaboration by all 5 council members at that meeting in January. I thought it was definitely a fruitful discussion. And now this document formalizes and for the general public kind of puts what is our north arrow? What are we going to focus on for the next 2 years? It's a really well thought out plan. I mean, obviously it's fluid and things are going to come up that we'll still need to address, but this will be our major focus for the next 2 years. And it's something that I think in the 3 years I've been on council has been lacking up until now. And it really helps us focus on what we believe should be the priorities of the city of Escalon. So I really appreciate all of your hard work that you put into this. and for the rest of the staff as well.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, if we're ready, I'll make a motion.
Okay, go. One,
I'd like to motion to approve the City of Escalon 2025-2026 strategic plan.
I'll second that.
okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. No nays. Okay, we'll go on to number 4 of the administrative matters.
Okay. Thank you again, Mayor. I will do a brief introduction, as this is staff's item, and then turn it over to the makers of the or the agenda request item. So in the recommendation, you will see that the item is to discuss and provide direction on an agenda item request that was received, principally from Councilmember Engel, seconded and sort of supported by Mayor Hagan, to consider a Measure P advisory committee, a citizens advisory committee, commission, group. And with that brief introduction, I will turn it over to Councilmember Engel for his thoughts.
Thank you, City Manager. Council, I'm asking for consideration. I'll just read what I wrote here, and then we can get into some discussion. I'm asking for consideration of a council-appointed 3-member body. This body would meet quarterly and provide presentations between budget cycles, so the annual and the mid-year, and make recommendations to the council on what the community would like to see the council prioritize in regards to Measure P funds. This body would be encouraged to actively seek feedback from the community and to provide a well-rounded representation of our citizens' wants and needs. My hopes would be that the committee would be compromised and represent a diverse segment of our community. Just to add into that, my thoughts are that it would be an appointed committee, so very similar to how we appoint any other body here within the city. Hopefully that was a good explanation, but I'm definitely open to asking questions or taking suggestions.
Yeah, I see it as a necessary thing. So when we look at, the money we're asking the citizens to, so to speak, pony up so we can keep our town floating properly, I think it's important to have some degree of input that's kind of fluid from an outside board. So that's why I backed you on this, because I think it's a good idea.
Well, I appreciate that. And, really there was a lot of public outpour over concerns of what Measure P funds were going to be spent on. I thought this gave the community an opportunity to actually get involved and provide, feedback to the council so that we were continually engaged with the community and had a better understanding of what they were looking for. I think each one of us has specific outreach into the community, and adding this body would just help to reach out further into the community and gather additional input and help us to make sure that we are accurately representing the wants and needs of our town.
Any other questions for?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First of all, Councilmember Engel, all of the rest of our boards are 5 members. Would you consider bumping it up to 5 members as opposed to 3?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to options and considerations. I'd be interested to hear what the rest of the council thought on that. It was just a recommendation as I went through and was kind of thinking about how to make up the body and the amount of people that would potentially apply. I thought 3 was probably going to be a more achievable number, but I'm definitely open and curious what the council would like to see.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with 5 as long as we have enough participation.
And I only have one concern about this, and that concern is that staff has identified to us as the governing body of the city of Escalon what you all interpret as should be the expenditure plan. So for the public, the anticipated, I'm just going to read this off of an email that, so 15% of the Measure P funds will go towards improving economic development. 25% are intended to go towards reducing the city's financial liabilities. In other words, trying to reduce the liability, our CalPERS liability. 25% maintaining essential services and staffing. And then the other remaining 35% is maintaining community infrastructure. My question for Councilmember Engel is, these 4 plans that staff has worked out are directly aligned with what we just approved on the strategic plan. What do we do in a situation if the general public says, hell no, we don't want to pay down the CalPERS liability, and staff believes that that would be the best measure for the long-term financial stability of the city? So how do we deal with that if there's a disagreement between what staff believes the financial focus should be versus a member of the community?
Do you mind, you want to jump in there? No, so I appreciate the question, and I would anticipate that there would be some disagreement in there. I think the real purpose behind that is to make sure that the community also has a say in where those funds are allocated. This would be an advisory body, so they would be able to make suggestions. It is an additional way. Ultimately, it would come back to council, and council will have to make that decision. But, you know, my real thoughts are, we did have our council workshop, and as a council, we were able to provide the input based off of our own community outreach to determine where those funds were going to go. And I do believe in the strategic plan. I believe that it's a great start. And as that develops, you know, into next councils, next folks that would sit into this seat, it further enhances the citizens' input into where those funds can potentially go. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question. If it doesn't, I can.
I guess I'll just be frank. Here's my concern. So for the year that, and I'm going to call you out, Celinda. The year that Celinda has been here, she has worked her tail off to really maintain, to get the city in a really strong financial, righting the ship, if you will. My concern is that if Celinda believes that these should be the priorities, and a member of the public says, no, Celinda is completely off base, now are we taking away the true input from our finance director and then putting that in the hands of a member of the public? Because we hired her as our finance director to do a very important job for the city of Escalon. That's my concern.
I see it more as like fine tuning the information and helping Celinda be able to fine tune those numbers. So if we're seeing that the community wants maybe more weight put towards another area, then she's aware of that, and it allows us to, you know, I think, really have a better pulse on, you know, what the community wants in general, is kind of how I see it. It's more of an advisory, extra information. I mean, ultimately, the council would make decisions along with the finance as to what's the right answer moving forward, but I don't think we can ever go wrong having more information.
Well, ultimately, I think that it's really important that we get regular check-ins with the community and make sure that we're spending the tax dollars that they're paying in a way that they deem fit. They voted on the measure in good faith that we were going to spend that money. I think this gives them an opportunity to actually be involved and have input. And again, it is, you know, what I'm proposing is an advisory committee, so to be able to gather that input and present it twice a year, you know, annual and mid-year, just for our consideration. Obviously, Celinda, I'm not trying to make your job any more difficult by putting additional cooks in the kitchen, but I do believe that as we realize the Measure P funds and see what they are and understand if there's a surplus or a delta, that we may have the latitude to be able to mildly shift priorities and serve our community. And I think it's really important that we listen to them and we don't, sit up here as a body, the council, and say, this is the bottom line, this is what we do. I want to know what the community would like us to do as well.
Well, I guess, first of all, let me just state, I appreciate the openness and greater transparency for Measure P funds. We made a commitment to the community that this is what we would provide, and I believe we have a path moving forward. And so one of the things that we've previously decided was that once those Measure P funds start rolling in, then Celinda would be providing quarterly updates to the council and to the general public, and we would be posting it on the website. And so I guess my only concern is the formation of this body. Are we already doing this based off of the reports that are provided by staff and those opportunities? Once we start getting the revenue coming in on a quarterly basis, the community, it's going to be held in a council meeting, and the community will be able to provide that feedback.
Well, I appreciate that fact, and I definitely hear what you're saying. The point of the committee would be to have further outreach. I think we can see the regular members that attend meetings and other folks that may watch online or just hear about what's going on. I think down towards the end of my notes and question, I said this body would be encouraged to actively seek feedback from the community and provide a well-rounded representation of our citizens' wants and needs. The hopes would be that as we, in the same way that we are engaged with the community in seeking this output or input, that there would be additional folks out there with a similar mindset of trying to find out what the real needs are for our town, or what the town feels like the needs are, and then providing us with that. So it's just additional, my thought is it's just additional input for us to consider. I do appreciate the folks that come, but this broadens that outreach.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I don't want to put you in the hot seat, but I'd like to get your input on it also.
I feel the greater transparency would be great. We could have the conversation of what the constituents really want. And then there's the other side of the what can we actually do? And that might be for the first few years, we're like, okay, the people want X, we can provide that in 3 years, we can provide that in 2 years.
So it's more even kind of an educational ability to spread education to what the...
Information is king. We
Yeah.
gotta have it, so.
My thought in reading this, I'm sorry, you mind if I jump in? It's kind of hard to get a word in here. My thought, reading through this is that, yes, it's a fantastic idea for the recommendations, but much more importantly for the transparency. This would give another body outside of us the opportunity to sit down with Celinda, go through these numbers, and then be able to explain those numbers off of the cuff the way that a lot of us can after spending time with you. Because you have a great way of explaining all this stuff to us. The public typically doesn't see, what it is that, we discuss with you, but you get into the weeds on a lot of stuff, and if you're able to do that with whether it's 3 or 5 other people, I think that's a fantastic idea. As far as recommendations go, at the end of the day, they're an advisory committee. They're not making rules and decisions, and if it's something that we feel steps outside of whether it's the strategic plan or just a decision that we don't agree with, we would ultimately have the final decision in it. So I definitely don't see the harm in it, but that's just kind of, my take on it is that the transparency level of it. And then also, the outreach. I only have so many hours in a day to talk to so many people, and I'm sure that the 4 of you would agree. If we had 3 or 5 other members that, on a specific subject, hey, if, you want to talk about, city's finance and Measure P funds, you could reach out to this advisory body.
Right.
Now we have that much more feedback coming in from the community, because then they're investing their hours of the day that we don't have getting inputted as well.
I guess my point was that, and I totally appreciate the outreach effort. My point was that, for lack of a better term, I'm trying to avoid a pissing contest between a board and the finance director, because then what? So If it's a new point, it's a new
Well,
point. you know?
my counter to that would be that the then what is the then what is us.
Is we make the decision.
We would always be the ones making the decision, so
Okay.
that wouldn't even necessarily be conflict between Celinda and said advisory board, but, you know, here's what the advisory board presented, here's what Celinda had to say.
And then
Council,
ultimately, we make the decision.
council, what do you say?
Okay. Makes sense.
And just to touch on that and answer the mayor's question, you know, we will not weigh in on policy decisions. That's really the council's role.
Apologize.
No. That's okay to ask. What I'm saying is, you know, it's really our position to advise based on our expertise to the decision makers. And if the decision makers are the council alone or an advisory board that advises the council, it's really our role to provide our expertise and, you know, thoughts into an item. So however the council chooses to handle that is okay by us.
So I'm not 100% for or against this, this body, and I'm not sure how I'd like it formed, whether there's more people or less people, and whether or not it, you know, we can put out surveys and we can put out those types of things that, that we can get feedback on. But I do support putting it as an agenda item so that we can have an open discussion and we can have that coming in, right? So that's what we're really talking about, right? Is to put this as an agenda item, so
This is the agenda item, but it's going to have to come back for a resolution, potentially bylaws. We're going to have to get into more of the details. I think what staff is looking for, is this something you want us to pursue and bring back to you? But yeah, to your point, as far as all the details, that's going to have to get fleshed out.
Okay, so we're not making a decision today, whether it's 3 or 5 or like those types of decisions?
You know, you're not taking any
Or-
final decisions on that. I think that Jalen is looking for some feedback, because if you were to all secretly want 15 members, it would be good for him to know when he's preparing the documents, but all that is variables that can change.
Okay.
So you're basically looking for consensus? Okay.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is the meeting. Like, you know, you can come and tell us how you'd like Measure P funds spent anytime. You know, and we have an economic development committee that's also going to be developed now, according to our strategic plan. And so I just have to kind of think about whether that's a redundant, or if we want to put, I don't know if that's redundant, or I just kind of have to sit on the ideas of the feedback. I do very much support feedback from the community on how we should go forward on spending any additional funds that we have over and above our budgetary necessities. So.
Any other communication, or do we want to get some feedback from the?
Definitely want to hear from the.
Okay, from the community. Anyone in the audience who would like to kind of talk about it? Excuse me.
Russell again. Sounds like a great idea. It sounds like you guys are all, we talked about transparency. You guys all talked about transparency last month. Sounds like a great idea. I would just caution you not to take up people's time, make them feel good about something they're involved in, then turn around and you're going to vote the way you want anyhow. So after she's done all the hard work, city manager's done all the hard work, take all the input and whatever, and then discount it. When we talk about transparency, just think about that. Be cognizant of that as well.
Makes sense.
Gabriela Vargas. Uh-oh, hold on. I think it's a great idea. I personally would advise that it's limited to 3 members. 5 is too many cooks in the kitchen and too many different opinions, and may make decisions much more difficult. I think it opens up real community involvement as an action, not just as something you say that you're going to do. I want to remind the council that you work for the residents of this town. It was not too long ago that I remember specifically being told by one of the council members that The workshops were for us in the community to provide input, but ultimately, we elected you as our representatives, and the decision was ultimately yours. That statement makes us feel irrelevant, and our opinions that don't matter. And they do, because we elected you to do what was best for us as a community. And I think that needs to be instilled in the council as a whole. I would question, is this limited to the Measure P funds, not the general funds?
The intent was specifically for the approved voted on Measure P.
Okay, would this include this body being privy to confidential information? That would be something to consider in who you choose. And what would be the criteria for those that are applying? I would be very hesitant to have just no criteria assigned to who would be eligible. I would also have a question regarding, would this include areas in which we could save money and possibly make budget cuts? Being a forensic investigator myself, I know I've sat down with Linda on a couple occasions and have let her know, and she already knew because she's brilliant, we could be cutting budget more here, and ultimately, it appears, not her statement, but it appears that the cause of not cutting more budget here is decisions made by the council that ultimately is creating financial impact for us because of the hesitation of the council. That's my own opinion. I believe that our current budget workshops are a joke. It is not what I see as a workshop where we're working together, we're collaborating. It is the council up in their seats of authority, and we are limited to how we get to participate. And that, to me, is not us working together to find a resolve. My only concern, I also would be very interested in taking on a position like this and doing even more so a forensic audit. I don't know, are our audits forensic audits?
No, it's my understanding our audits are limited to scope and content, I mean, a basic financial audit.
And that's what I anticipated. So a forensic audit, to let the city really know what they may not, or the council really know what things that they may not be seeing, that Celinda may not even be able to see at first glance. My only concern with this is adding more work for Celinda. She already is doing so much to put everything that she's done into play, but also to clean up the mess that was left behind. And I would hate to see her have to take any more time away from her responsibilities, her family, whatnot, to have to invest in doing something like this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Danny Fox. I kind of like the idea, Councilman Engel, to some degree. It's certainly worth talking about and looking at. I see a problem is we don't know how much we're talking about. Is that correct? Measure P.
We have a pretty good idea. If we're collecting 8 million now and it's 1% is what we're getting from the county, we'll get that 8 million, you know, that would be that other 1%.
So that
the rub gets to be how many more businesses are we losing? How much more tax money are we going to get opposed to the current year when we're looking at X is equal to the current year? Well, is the next year going to be greater or less than?
So we really don't know at this point in time with the audit and what's going to happen to Measure P and moving forward, paying the bills on the current budget?
We have some preliminary figures that we've looked at just to anticipate what our tax revenues are going to be and any other changes that we've seen in the city so far, reductions in property tax, increases in property tax. Some of our costs have gone up. There's some things that we've factored into a estimated budget going forward, because we're always doing budget.
Right.
We're in our current, and we're always looking forward to see what's going to happen so we can see these trends. So trends are showing that we will have a significant amount of impact from that Measure P.
Is it appearing that they'll not have to take any money out of the general fund reserve in order to balance the budget going into 25, 26? Or 26, 27, excuse me.
26, 27 is a different story. 25, 26 is what we're going to be looking at now. The current year that we're in, I'm satisfied it'll go as planned.
Well, the reason I'm asking the question, we're just trying to get talking out loud about this whole process and having 3 or 4 members of the community, if there's any excess money, how they may want to spend that. And if you know whoever the 3 or 4 people are, we all know when you take a look at the city or the government budget, there's a lot in there. And you're going to have to educate the 3 or 4 people. I'm thinking the budget process, where we are moving forward and how much money do we really have extra to spend. And the community, those 3 or 4 members are going to have to figure out what they want to do to spend that excess money, if there is any excess money. But I think it's a pretty good idea if you want to get people involved, but how much experience do they have in taking a look and knowing the ins and outs of a city budget, such as Melinda? It's easy for you to say, hey, you got extra $150,000, $200,000 to spend. Well, they're not going to, they may get what they want, but the budget process is the big deal. We know that. And we'll see what the Measure P funds will bring. But I think it's a good item to talk about and get it resolved one way or the other, come up with some ideas. When would the 3 or 4 person panel need to be in place?
So my hopes were that as we're coming up to mid-year, that we, prior to that presentation, that applications would be able to go out, right? We'd have to have a nomination process, similarly to any other commission or committee that we have. So we probably wouldn't be looking at formation and then actual input until we get to next year's budget. But the thought is, if we start putting that work in now, right, we will get to a point where it's effective. As we're getting ready for our annual budget coming up, that it's obviously not going to be ready, and we don't have any firm input or data to show what Measure P is going to produce. I know that we have estimations, but by the time the committee's formed, they're able to understand what their role is, have some communication with staff and also with council. I think as we move towards our next fiscal year's budget, they would be well-versed and ready to go. And ultimately, I hear what you're saying about, hey, the extra money. I just want to make sure that we're hearing from the entire community where they want to see their tax dollars go. This is a surplus outside of our general fund and the rest of the accounts that we hold, right? This is extra income that's coming into the city. What does the city want to do with it? I don't want to sit up here and say, well, I think we should do this. I want to hear before I make that comment what folks want to do. And obviously our position up here is to try and make the best possible decision for the entire city. Right. So no one individual should have, a huge say in what goes on. That's where the formation of this body would hopefully help, right? It would expand the reach of the 5 of us and staff into the community to make sure that we're assessing, listening, and hopefully applying funds to those needs.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Anyone online? No. Bring it back to council. We have a consensus moving forward to let staff look at this deeper.
Don't we have to vote on it?
Do we need to vote?
So to echo Frank's point here, if there's any specific thing, so we will bring forward some sort of proposal, maybe guidelines, I just lost the term, bylaws, something like that, right? So if there's specific points, 3 members, 5 members, if there's specific points you want staff to look into directly, it would be fantastic if we could get, you know, kind of that verbalized to us. If it's open at this point and you just want staff to bring something back, then we can do that.
Well, I think the 3 to 5 member thing, obviously we should look at, you know, what that looks like and, you know, flesh out how this would look ideally being the most efficient approach, you know.
But can we make a decision whether it's 3 or 5? And I think we need to see some more formation of the bylaws and.
Yeah, well, I think that's what we're doing is getting consensus for them to put that stuff together and bring it back to us.
I guess what I'm saying is we have what Councilmember Engel's idea is, and now I don't think we have enough information right now to make a decision whether it's 3 or 5 based off of the bylaws and how the makeup of the group.
Correct. That's why I'm asking for when they go to, if there's consensus.
Okay.
These are a few specific points that we probably need to clean up, is what I'm getting at.
As far as whether it's 3 or 5, I would say, you know, my suggestion to start with is, why don't we leave that kind of open to the number of applicants that we receive?
Yeah.
We could open this thing up and only get 2 people,
Right.
you know, or maybe we get 4, maybe we get 27, you know, this is definitely going to spark some interest, you know, if, you know, we've been the right years around town with it. But I think that, you know, maybe we leave that kind of open to the number of applicants that we receive. If we only, you know, receive 4 applicants, then let's keep it at a number of 3. We, you know, go to the higher side of that, you know, then maybe we go ahead and move to 5. And I would say that's probably still manageable all in, you know, the same amount of time. And hopefully they can have, you know, kind of 1-hour meetings with, you know, Celinda. You know, I think once a quarter was what you were suggesting, right, Councilman Ingram?
Yeah, that's correct. Quarterly meetings, and obviously there's some work to be done in between those meetings, gathering that information and soliciting staff for input.
Councilmember Engel, have you thought about what sort of qualifications a member of the public would need to be on this?
I did. At the very end, a diverse segment of our community. Right, so I heard earlier about the Economic Development Committee that's being formed. I think that formation is really to find, drive, develop new business. This is really, you know, how to spend some funds. So, you know, we're a town of, you know, 75-ish, 100 people. You know, you could kind of break us into almost 4 quadrants. It would be nice to get a diverse group. I don't think that a specific background is required to gather information, because we're not asking for their specific information. We're asking for them to help gather that information and then present it back to us. So that would mean somebody who's community oriented, I guess, community driven, and potentially had some outreach. It wouldn't work or be effective if someone was nominated and then they never sought any input. If they just sat at home and, you know, watched TV, that wouldn't really help that committee.
Anything else?
I personally don't think that there's any necessary qualifications that we should be looking, you know, we should be looking for another finance manager. We have one of those, you know.
Yeah.
What we're looking for is community input, but, you know, by the same token, you know, we also don't want to have, you know, 3 or 5 retired members of the community, you know. We want to have kind of a plethora of representation of what the community actually is. I would say that, you know, that should probably be about our only, you know, real qualification there is, you know, yeah, being able to reach the community, having, you know, some contact and, you know, hopefully diverse contact, you know, for, each candidate. But I don't think, job qualifications are necessarily what we're looking for there. It's, you know, more community and a diverse segment of the community. So that's my opinion.
Anything else before we decide if there's consensus.
Yeah, I don't see a huge drawback from having this committee, unless it takes up too much of staff time, or what Kurt had said earlier, we don't want to give them wishful thinking, right? They're going to come to us. So those are the two real big drawbacks, as long as they're briefed on with staff, with what we have going on, about our CalPERS and how we're trying to, the goals of the city, make sure everybody is on board with, we are trying to pay that down, or we do have programs in the works that there's going to be some water studies, water rate studies, and do you want to put this money towards some of those so that your water rate, as long as they understand these types of intricacies within our budget and what this money could be used for, is not as high as a water bill, hopefully, if we pay those types of things. So as long as they know those things, instead of those are just things to consider, that as long as these people know that that's something to pass on, then, that I would just be concerned that they know all of the intricacies of our budget and what we are doing and our programs and our progress going forward, and our 6 projects that Justin's going to be completing within the next year. As long as everybody's on board with where we're going as a city.
And I think we can answer those questions through the interview process, to see if they, are walking in here and don't know anything, or do they actually kind of understand it already, or.
Yeah, and I think the term that was thrown around is extra money. This really isn't extra money. I mean, it is another income source that's coming in right now, and I'd love to say that it was extra money that we're gonna have on top of a balanced budget, but we're still getting there. And so as long as these people are going out, talking to the community, saying, hey, this is an option, and this is like knowing what the options are, and as well as getting, some new ideas, that would be great. And I'd love to have a little bit of extra money. We do have rec money, we do have development running, we do have these things. So whether they're doing it through this, or they're going to our budget workshops and talking to us there, wherever they want to talk to us, like I said, I don't see a huge drawback, except, getting high hopes. So that's my 2 cents, I guess.
I don't know if the council has thought about this, but I was just processing this, and to Ms. Vargas's point, this may help during the budget process, because, we know the budget because it's beat into us by Celinda, but, if we can say all we want about the budget, but if we have this committee now understanding it's the budget and understanding where the deficits are forecasted, it actually, that outreach component could actually not only help us with Measure P, it could help us at budget time as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it gives more transparency. It also alleviates a lot of this kind of like conspiracy talk and random crazy stuff.
City's hiding money.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
So I think it would be a good thing.
Thank you. We have what we need to bring it forward for your consideration.
All righty then.
Thank you.
On to number 5.
So in 2018 to 2019, the San Joaquin County Civil Grand Jury drafted a report in regard to the cold cases in San Joaquin County. At the time, there was not a universal definition of what a cold case was, or any clearly established policies or procedures for tracking and investigating them. In response to the report, Chief Michael Borges drafted a cold case policy which was implemented in February of 2020. At the time, it was a supplemental policy that was numbered 618, but was later adopted into Lexipol policy and renamed 601. At the time, no response was ever sent to the civil grand jury, and so we recently got a kind of a follow-up. There were several agencies in the county that didn't respond to the grand jury report at the time, and they're requesting a response now. I drafted a response indicating why we didn't respond. It's not that we didn't do the recommendations that were requested by the grand jury. It was just that, for whatever reason, the council at the time never sent a response to the civil grand jury. So I prepared the response. If approved, then we will send that to the civil grand jury as the response.
I just have one simple question. Do we have any cold cases?
No.
I didn't think so, but just want to double check. Any other questions up here for Chief?
And it seems like a no-brainer if you ask me, but
Your response was very well drafted.
Anyone before I go to the audience? Okay, the audience, anyone that would like to speak to this? We got one?
Am I annoying you yet? Gabrielle Vargas. I am actually a cold case investigator. I currently have a contract with Madera and Fresno County with over 2,000 cold cases that I am working. So I'm well versed in this. In reading your response, I think that it was very substantial for what the layperson is looking for. I don't think, however, for the problem within this county, it will suffice. And if I could, even before you send it off, maybe offer you some tips that might you choose to include. The biggest problem is that when the grand jury did this indictment, majority of departments did not respond. Those that did, they responded by taking their officers or their detectives off of current cases and putting them on cold cases, usually having to pay them more as an incentive. Unfortunately, that led to the increase in crime on the street because it wasn't being currently investigated properly. I just heard from our own sheriff for our county that they've implemented a cold case task force that uses the technique that I use, forensic investigative genetic genealogy, to solve their cases. They have well over 500 cases within the county. They have successfully solved one case in 1 year. No disrespect to them. That is pathetic. It is, they should be solving with a team like that 50, 40 cases a month. I understand we don't have any cold cases here in Escalon, but I do think that if we are going to have a policy regarding cold cases, it should include the updated technology that is available to combat these cases, like forensic investigative genetic genealogy. I think that it gives our city more of a positive reputation to the judge's order by showing that we are being proactive in case we do end up with a case that we can't go any further with and potentially ends up cold. And that would be my thought.
Thank you.
Gabrielle, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
What are you're, I kind of get what you're saying, but are you saying in the event we had a cold case, we would want to, say, hook up with someone that does this kind of stuff? Is that what you're asking or to add to this? Or?
Ultimately, the technology has been upgraded to the problem with traditional methods of pulling a detective or an officer off to solely focus on that case so we don't have, a number of cold cases is that takes away from that officer doing day-to-day duties and or we're paying him or her more as an incentive because when a case goes cold, you're out of investigative leads, right? Nobody else is coming forward. You don't have anywhere to turn, which is why, and there's no hidden CODIS, which is why the case goes cold to begin with. So now you're giving that case to a new officer than the original investigating officer, and you're saying here, now you look at it and see if the first officer missed something, or if you are able to solve it, right? So you're taking that officer off the street.
Yeah, I understand that, but I guess what, what I'm trying to understand is you want to add like a technology aspect to this?
I think that is important, that what's added to it is that from the time of the grand jury report until now, the technology has advanced.
Yeah, I understand
And I think that including in Escalon's policy, that for cold cases, we consider seeking out the technique.
The latest technology.
Exactly.
Okay,
would put us above what other cities in our county are doing.
Gotcha, that's what I was trying to clear up.
Yes,
Okay.
that is what I mean.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Do we need to vote on this one? Before we get there, or did we bring it back?
I need to bring it back.
Chief, what are your thoughts on Ms. Vargas's comments?
It wouldn't hurt. I mean, I can easily update the policy. Like it mentioned, the policy was drafted in 2020. There has been leaps and bounds in genetic referencing, as far as you can not only now look for direct hits, you can find relatives within a certain consanguinity and then track it back. That's how they found, that's one of how they found the guy in Idaho that murdered those sorority sisters. They didn't get a match on him, they got a match on a relative, and then they tracked it back to him and were able to get a hit on him. So I think what she's kind of saying is implement these technologies before it goes cold, or as soon as it will get to the point of a cold case, go to that, and then you prevent it from sitting on a shelf for 5-10 years before.
Which, I mean, not that we have a cold case, but hypothetically we did, I would want to, it would obviously be a member of our community, most likely, so we'd want to get answers for them. So I think we should be using the tip of the spear technology if we can.
I agree.
So.
Does the policy need to be changed before this is sent in to the grand jury?
No, sir.
You can update that after the fact, right? Okay. So I don't really see any reason to delay sending this in and getting that put to bed.
Anyone else want to comment or humor a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve what is the agenda item? To approve Chief Cardgrave's response to the San Joaquin County Grand Jury in regards to report case number 318, cold cases in San Joaquin County on the back burner.
Do you mind adding the technology up?
Yeah, with the proposed technology changes as identified by community member Ms. Vargas.
So I'll just clarify two different actions. One is sending in the response to the grand jury to kind of resolve that issue. Another, if council wants to provide that direction, is updating the policy. Now, one could go before the other. I think what was just clarified through Councilmember Kay's comment is send in the report and then update the policy. So if there's further clarification on the motion, that'd be appreciated.
And just to be clear, you could provide that feedback to the chief on the policy, but the Lexington policies are an administrative. Correct. You have a requirement in law to update those as you need, and those don't go to council for approval.
Correct.
Yeah, so he'll implement what he heard to make the appropriate adjustments to the policy. That's actually something that the police chief has to do.
Okay.
Without subjecting that to council, but he's heard the feedback, and it sounds like he's going to make those changes. So your motion can only be just to file the.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's clarity.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, my original motion stays as is.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. No nays. All righty then. So I can officially sign this thing. Okay, so we're done with the administrative. We'll go on to council communications. We'll start with Councilman Kay.
I really don't have much to say, but there was really two members of our residents here kind of hit on the same subject about there being a 5-minute window. Agenda items. The other one, I believe, was a mention of a workshop and not really having the opportunity to speak at a workshop and be heard. The reason that things are limited to 5 minutes, and even, an agenda item, we could have a member of the community that would be more than happy to file an agenda item every single meeting and then get up here and hijack the city council meeting for hours on end. That's the reason that there is a 5-minute window on there. It's not that anyone is, trying to, discriminate against time or not listening to constituents. It's, that could be an awfully big expense to the city over the course of time, having someone come up, on a regular basis. And you do have members of the community that are very involved in, this chamber and, come up and speak at every meeting. If they were able to then turn that into an hour rant about whatever subject it was that they decided, that could be an enormous expense to the city. So that's the reason that those are in place. Aside from that, I really don't have much to say. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And I think I'll leave it at that.
We'll go on to Councilman Stroman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. Congratulations to Officer Gunther. Gunther, welcome to the force. Welcome to the city of Escalon. I know I probably should have said this while he was here, but I think we all recognize the hard work by Officer Palomino. I mean, he's doing an awesome job. And so, Chief, if you could pass that along, I think that the Officer of the Year award just goes on to all of his hard work, and he's so personable. So, really appreciate all of his hard work. I'm looking for council consensus on for 2 future agenda items. First one is, I know there was some discussion about the LLDs, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But one of the things that I've recognized is that notifications for those annual meetings or for LLDs in the past has been simply an advertisement in the newspaper, because that's what state law requires. And whether you were whatever side of the fence you're on with LLDs, this council has been really pushing openness and transparency. So what I would like to do is get council consensus for a discussion about increasing notifications for public meetings.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Instead of doing just the bare minimum of advertising at the newspaper, just maybe post it on the city's website or put it on the billboard or something, just to create greater awareness to the community. Because honestly, I read the Times when I'm looking for a picture of my kid. I don't dig into the Times to look for public meetings. And so I think we need to look at that policy and make some changes based off of 2025.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if the rest of the council, how you feel, but
Yeah, I'd like to discuss that.
that's fine with me.
I'd actually asked a question last week, week before last. I'd like to ask you, Frank, if we generate a cost in, sending out mailers to notify this and all that, does that get billed back to the LMD? Or added?
Obviously, the legally required ones, yes. I'm not 100% sure about the voluntary, so I just need to look at that. I think it possibly could be, but I really would need to look into that.
Well, and my next curiosity about that is, should we do that where we are incurring a cost, where then we're gonna, send the fee to the residents of that LMD? At that point, we need their input for it because it's not included in their original documents, right?
What I would say is there's always an administrative component to an LLD that is approved, so I would just need to see if those voluntary extra ones is something that's still consistent with the landscape lighting law. Okay. But I think it's probably broadly provides for administrative costs already, but I would want to look at that.
Okay. Could you please look into that? Because I think it's important. I mean, obviously, we're just trying to get as much information out there ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The other item I wanted to get council consensus is, I think you all know that the mayor and I serve on the 2x2 committee for fire. And at our first 2x2 meeting for the fire department, the concern was brought up about, so recently the fire department added solar to one of their facilities, and they were charged a $1,300 administrative fee for plan review. But yet, the fire department does so much to help us within the city. So I just want us to consider some sort of agreement between the school district and the fire department and the city so that we're not just trading fees back and forth, because at the end of the day, the taxpayer dollars. And so was there really a cost of $1,300, or was that just what we charge everybody else? I don't know. So really kind of want to look at a policy for our other fellow public agencies.
Yeah, again, I'd be on board with that. I think we need to have agreements, and we need to have, the groups we work with, partnerships, we should be trying to foster those and make them solid partnerships. I think one of the ways of doing that, I think, is definitely through creating these pathways of agreement. So I definitely would want to have that conversation.
I agree. And even if the policy is to specially review anything that comes from these agencies, the public agencies, I mean, something in the policy just to even have a second set of eyes on it to see if we want to change it, change the fee for those agencies.
Thank you. And last but not least, I was at an event this weekend I mentioned earlier. It was the Science Olympiad for Dent Elementary, so it's 3rd through 5th graders. There were 46 students, 23 gold team, 23 green team, and these kids have really, for the last 3 months, have poured their heart into these little projects. And so
The rockets?
the water rockets and hot air balloons and can race. I was up last Thursday night scrambling, trying to figure out how to put a rubber band and washers into a Pringles can and make it roll down the street. But we actually had some really great results this year. So Dent has been doing this event for 10 years, and we had a first place medal. I think it's first place medal ever in this event. There were over 850 elementary school students there, and Elias Kromick and Tessa Peters brought home a first place medal for mystery architecture. And then Sophia Estrada and Sophie Jefferson brought home a 6th place medal for Write It, Do It. And so
For what? Say that again?
Write It, Do It.
Right.
So just want to recognize those 4 students for all of their hard work, as well as to Ms. Parks and Ms. Hillstrom, the advisors for this club, and all the parent volunteers, because they really gave a lot of their extra time to infuse science into the future of our community. So just want to say thank you to all of them, and that's all I have.
Okay. On to Councilman Engel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 things for staff, but primarily for Public Works. I'm wondering if there is a way to do like a ultra low cost beautification project along like the railroad tracks. So like when we do like our weed abatement, if there's something like we could just throw out a bunch of like wildflower seeds or something, so it's like flowers growing instead of weeds, and maybe dense enough to choke it out. I get there could be a huge cost associated with a real project of planting bushes or shrubbery or something like that. But something super low cost just to clean that up as we come into town. I know it's probably property of the railroad, so I don't know what rights we may or may not have, but I mean, would we get in trouble if we just drove by and threw out a bunch of wildflower seeds?
I mean, poppies grow,
Right?
California poppies are
Right?
just everywhere, so, you know,
So if we could look into that,
Pigeons to fly over it.
yeah, right, if we could look into that.
I like that.
Sure, no problem.
I dig
Thank
it.
you. Second is the Lions Club corned beef and cabbage feed's coming up on the 20th of this month. If you haven't got your tickets already, reach out to a Lions Club member or grab a ticket. It's a really fun event. Hope a bunch of you can make it out. And that's all I have.
On to Pro Tem. Sure. What would you like to say tonight?
I guess I'll do a community event. So this week, or every year, the high school puts on a week-long art fair at the high school. It is this week. I don't know if they usually have allowed people of the public to go in and check out the art fair. They are very impressive. They have them from all of the different schools, but also the high school. And some of these are very noteworthy, hang on your wall, very like advanced art. I would highly recommend if you get a chance to go down, check it out, offer a kid if you want to buy a painting, it makes their day. And so if you can check that out, that's going on. That goes along with Dr. Seuss Week. So we're all celebrating something at some campus this week. So make it down to the art fair if you can. And
Did you say the date?
what's that?
Did you say the
It's
date?
this week. It's Monday through Friday.
Oh, it's the whole
I
week.
do believe they take down Friday, so like you probably through Thursday. Yeah. Very cool event. And then the other thing is thank you to staff for making the strategic plan come to life. I think that's something that we didn't know was called a strategic plan when we were elected or when we got here, but it is something that we've been looking for. So really appreciate staff and their work and putting action items and goals into a plan that we can be accountable for and take ownership for. So really appreciate that. And always, as always, I always see good things coming in the future for Escalon. So thanks, staff. And that's it.
I think everyone said kind of everything I was going to say. So no reason to rehash it. I just want to say that the community, I was proud of you today. I mean, really showed class and patience, and we got through that meeting earlier with, and it was really good. It was real productive. So really appreciate your feedback on that. Other than that, I guess, excuse me, have a good rest of your evening.